Page 28, what was number 1? What did it ask?
Change the fractions to decimals, round to the nearest thousand.
Teachers for the direction. At this time, I need juniors M through D. All juniors, even if you're not having a picture packet, they're ordering a picture packet. All juniors M through D. Please go down and have your picture taken at this time. Thank you.
So the first one, 3/7. How do we change a fraction into a decimal?
Divide by the bottom number.
Right. 3 divided by 7. Punch it into your calculator. 3 divided by 7. Does anybody know, before you do that on your calculator, what happens when you divide by 7? It doesn't come out all nice and even. It's going to come out some crazy number that goes on forever. All right? What'd you come up with?
0.43.
Anybody else agree with Wes on that? Yes, no, maybe? I'm going to start calling on people so that somebody other than Wes answers. Because you guys are going to wake up, right? So you're going to help me? Number 2, same setup. What are some fractions that you should know as a decimal? 1/2. What's 1/2 as a decimal?
0.5.
0.5. Good. Thank you for answering. More than one of you answered this time. What's some others?
1/3.
1/3. That's one that a lot of people get confused on. What's 1/3 as a decimal? 0.3 repeating, right? What's 2/3? 0.6 repeating. Right? Now, the way that works, and we'll go back to some of the others. Does anybody know what 1/9 is as a decimal? Divide it on your calculator real quick. 1 divided by 9. Anybody have a guess what 2/9 is as a decimal? 0.2 repeating. 3/9 we already talked about. 3/9 is the same as 1/3, and that's 0.3 repeating. So what's 4/9 as a decimal? Now this is important because when you get to stuff like interest rates and stuff, when we get to that later on this year, a lot of times on commercials and stuff you'll see, it'll say, the interest rate right now is 2 4/9%. Well, that's 2.4 repeating. Anybody have a guess why they make interest rates stuff like that?
They're confusing.
Right, they want to confuse you so that you don't try to figure stuff up on your own, and then it makes them look smart and makes poor Lane look dumb, and he just doesn't even bother to do it. What's some other fractions that we should know?
1/1.
Hopefully. Did 1/2, what else? 1/4, what's that? 0.25. What goes right along with 1/2 and 1/4? 3/4. What's that as a decimal? 0.75. We already did the thirds. Does anybody have any idea what's one? Let's do this one first. What's 1/10 as a decimal? 0.1. What's 2/10? 0.2. What's 1/5 as a decimal? 0.2. What's 2/5 as a decimal? 0.4. You just sort of, when it's a fifth, you just sort of double the top number. Jumping on down, what else they had? Change the decimal to a fraction. Number 3. A lot of people have a lot of trouble with this. 0.4. Watch closely. All you do to change a decimal to a fraction is count the place value here. Does everybody know their place values? What's right behind the decimal? What's the first place behind the decimal? Close. Put a TH on it. Tenths. Then what?
Teachers at this time, we're going to
Hundreds.
send sophomores, last names A through N, to the high school, to the
Thousands.
middle school, elementary school cafeteria.
10,000.
Sophomores A through N. Sophomores, please go even if you do not have a picture packet. Thank you.
That place value, do they have to say that every time you think to make the announcement?
They made a whole announcement just saying that. I mean, it's unnecessary.
Whatever place value is of the last number, that's what goes on the bottom. So here the 4 is in the tenths place, so what's our denominator? 10. And you just put the number without the decimal on top. If you have a calculator, if you have one of the big calculators, then it's a little harder. If you have one of the small calculators, it's a little easier. You can use the ABC button on the small calculator. With the big calculators, if Carly does this, 4 divided by 10, and then hits the math button, the very first thing says fraction. You hit enter, enter, and then it gives her the answer in lowest terms as a fraction. If you have one of the small calculators and use the ABC button on it, so on this calculator, I gotta remember on this one where it's at. Yeah, yours is right there. It's not an ABC button, but it's at. So if we put in 4, hit that button, 10, then hit enter. It puts it, see how it's written 2, and then that little thing 5, that's 2 over 5. It writes it as a fraction for you. Look at number 4. I'm going to write this as a fraction. Watch closely so you understand this. If you understand all this basic stuff as we go throughout the year, it's going to make everything a whole lot easier. First of all, what's our whole number here?
7.
Is that going to change?
No.
Just leave it as a whole number. The 8 is in the tenths place. Sorry, I did what Wes did a second ago. Tenths place. The 2's in the what? Hundredths. So what goes on bottom of our fraction? 100. What goes on top? 82. And then all we do is reduce this down and put 7 in. Somebody help me out. Reduce it down on your calculator. What's it come out to be? 41 over 50. That's our answer. Now another thing I'm going to show you, and I don't know how to do it on the big calculators. On the small calculators, this would be my suggestion, is to have one of these TI-30s or Casio like this one. A lot of them, and I think the big calculators might have it also, but I can't remember where it's at. I'll have to look here in a second. A lot of them will have a button that'll say something like this. Any idea what that means? Changing fraction to a decimal, and how, if it's the double arrow, what's it telling you? It'll do it vice versa. So all you do is put in whatever it says, and then it'll change it to the other form for you. So if I'm looking at this calculator, if I can find it on here, my eyes aren't as good as they. This one is SD. I'm not sure what the S stands for. Something to decimal, but it's the SD button. Some of them might be SD. What is it? So if I do this, if I put in 7.82 and I hit that button, oops, why didn't I do it? 7.82. Maybe I got to hit second. Shift. Somebody's got one of the small ones. Caitlin, on yours. What's it got? So got it like an FD button. see me struggling to see the others. It's right here. So her FD button, you gotta hit second, do this. So if I punch in 7.82 and I hit second, and then that FD button hit equals, it gives me the whole number and the fraction. So it'll change all of it for you. Looking at number 5, 37.5%. 37.5%. How do we change that into a decimal? Which way? So 0.375. The calculators all have a percent button on there also. Everybody listening closely to this. Nathan, you listening? Never ever use the percent button on the calculator. If you're not smart enough to bump the decimal over 2 places one way or the other, go home, make sure your mommy and daddy love you because you're going to be living in their basement for the rest of your life. So if you're not smart enough to move that decimal 2 places, sorry, Kate, that a little too harsh. So you better hope they love you a whole bunch then. Be able to bump it 2 places. If you're changing it percent to a decimal, you're going 2 places to the left. Decimal to a percent, 2 places to the right. Everybody can do that. All right? I don't use the percent button on your calculator because it's confusing, and I don't feel like trying to teach it to you. What's your question, Nate?
Why do you have
Because a percentage is always out of what? If we were going to make this a fraction, it's out of 100. When you're dividing, ignore that. When you're dividing by 100, how many places is the decimal moving? 2. If you were dividing by 10, decimal would be moving 1 place. However many zeros there are, that's how many place values or how many places you're moving. So if I did this, 37.5%, that means 37.5, ignore that, 37.5 out of 100. If we wanted to change that into a fraction. So let's do an easy one. I had 12%. 12% means 12 out of 100. And if I wanted to divide this, so if I changed it from here to here first, from a percent to a fraction, and then I wanted to change this fraction into a decimal, I should know that dividing by 100 is just taking the decimal and moving it 2 places every time. Because anytime you're dividing by 100, that's all it does mathematically. Does anybody know on the big calculators? I swear there's some place on there that it's got that fraction to decimal, decimal to fraction. But I think it's under one of the other buttons, like the math button or something. Has anybody else ever found it? Say it again. I swear it's on here somewhere. I remember it being on here. Because a student showed me a few years ago, and this is a fun thing.
Well, if it's on there, it's not in fraction. That's it.
Right, it's under one of the, I think it's under like the math button or something, I thought. Some way you could do it, but I don't. Does that, everybody know how to change fractions, decimals, percents? Adam, you can handle all that? Adam's still mad at me about the comment about living in his parents' basement. for the rest of his life? He'll probably build one. Next, go ahead and start copying this down. This is probably the hardest thing that we've done all year long. Probably the hardest thing that we've done all year long. Make sure you're writing this down. Make sure you're following along, right, Adam? That might be a little nicer if you made sure you did what? Don't put it in the other ear either. I'm going to check it next. Matt, you want me to scream when you start dozing off again to wake you up? I will. Nothing I like more than see big fellas like you jump, because I scared them to death. I can't laugh too much. Mr. Harrison walked into my room this morning. I was back here in my little hole here, and he walked in, and I turned, and he was standing right here. Scared the crap out of me. I got the right ones back here too. I was thinking what we did.
Hey, can you press that button again?
Again, graduated commission, very, very difficult. I shouldn't say that's not real difficult. Just hard to understand, so hard to follow.
Teacher's bar interruption. At this time, sophomore's last name M through Z. Sophomore's last name M through Z. Go ahead and report to the elementary cafeteria. Again, sophomores M through Z to the cafeteria, and that includes all sophomores, even if you do not have a picture packet. Thank you.
Hold on right now.
So when you guys get back from getting your picture taken,
We don't get a
they just called you.
We're not soft.
Had the right batteries the first time. All right, Levi, you don't think I'm funny anymore? Huh? Maybe could give you a back rub or something to keep you awake. I know you want to get yours taken because you're not ready to move out of your mommy's house or your daddy's house, whichever one you're staying at now. You want to stay there forever. Graduated commission. Graduated commission is this. And a lot of companies do graduated commission now. Because what they do is they say, hey, you sell this much, we're going to give you this percentage. You sell more than that, we're going to give you a higher percentage. You sell more than that, we're going to give you an even higher percentage. Why would a company do that? They want you to sell as much as you possibly can. All right, so that Elijah doesn't sell $1,000 worth of whatever it is he's selling, and then stops and says, well, I'm not even going to try the rest of the week because I've already sold that much, and all they're going to do is give me 3% commission anyway on anything else, so that's enough. So now they jack it up and they give you a higher percentage the more you sell. And this is just like the other commission, except now you gotta think part by part. So the more you sell, the higher percentage you get. And we're gonna do some examples, and the stuff's real short. I'll give you a second, write this example down right there in your notes, copy down this box so that you have it there to look at. Give you a minute. There's no easy way to show you how to do this other than to do problems. What we're going to do with the homework is, I'll show you here in a minute, we're going to do a bunch of it together. The more we get done together, the better it is for you. It's actually twice as good for you because you'll have it done, and I'm going to do something else to make it so you don't have as much to do. I would tell Nathan to write this down while he's sitting there doing nothing, but we all know that what's he going to get on the test when we have it next week? 100%. He doesn't need to write any of this down. 100%.
You gotta go.
No, you think you could do this if I didn't show you how to do it? Come on now, I have faith in you. Now, another reason that a lot of companies might do something like this is what? I'm not trying to degrade anybody or anything, but you go to some place and you buy something, some furniture store or something like that. Are the salespeople people who have like doctorate degrees and real intelligent Albert Einsteins of the world? Probably not. So, if you're one of those people that doesn't have a doctorate degree and everything, and they tell you, hey, this is the way your stuff's set up, are you going to be able to figure it out? Or are you just going to take their word for it when they give you your paycheck? You're going to take their word for it. You never know, maybe that manager is like Mr. Ebersole, and he knows that you're going to take their word for it, and he's slipping $100 from your check into his check, so he's got more money to take home with him each week. When you do this, I put this chart on here. I would highly suggest that you make a little chart each time we do one of these problems. It doesn't have to be anything real spectacular or anything, but you make a little chart just so you can keep track as we go. This one says, Irene sells appliances at Twin City Sales. She receives a graduated commission as shown in the chart. Her sales for the past month were $9,840. What was her commission for the month? So when you get a graduated commission, this says the first $1,000 that she sells, she makes what percentage? 4%. The next $2,000 she makes 6%. Anything over $3,000, she makes 8%. 8% is a whole lot better than just giving her that straight 4%, because now she's making double the percentage. When I have something like this is what I would do. If I have this chart, I'm going to put how much she makes here, how much she makes here, how much she makes here. But we got to figure each one out. First thing we got to check, does she sell more than $1,000? So for that first 1,000, she makes what percentage? So we're going to take 1,000 times what? Make sure you change it to a decimal, so you bump it over, how many places, Nathan? 2. So 0.04. Somebody tell me what that is. 40? Is that right? So how much money did she make on this first 1,000 right here? $40. Now here's where you got to be careful. That part's not too difficult, but for the rest of it, you got to be careful. The next 2,000. What do we got to do before we go on to the next 2,000? We already paid her for what? You got to take away that 1,000, right? So what's 9840 minus 1,000? So they still have to pay her commission on $8,840.
Pardon me, teachers for the direction.
$40.
Freshman with the last name A through N, freshman with the last name A through N. Please come down and get your pictures taken, even if you don't have a picture packet. Thank you.
Does she make, or I'm sorry, does she sell more than 2,000 more above that 1,000?
Yes.
Yeah. Now here's where you got to be careful again. Are we going to give her 6% times this number? You're going to give her 6% of what?
2,000.
Of 2,000. So the next thing we do is we take 2,000 times, what's the decimal for 6%? Grab your calculator and help me out. What's 2,000 times 0.06? 120. So how much did she make for this $2,000 that she sold? $120. What do we do with this number? Subtract off that 2,000. What's that leave us with? 6,840. Now, the next one says everything over 3,000. The reason it says everything over 3,000, we already paid her for this 1,000. We already paid her for that 2,000. So we paid her for a total of $3,000 worth of sales right now. Well, we still have to pay her for this 6,840. That's above the 3,000. So what are we going to do with that 6,840 now? Times it by, what's our percentage? 0.08. Somebody do that. Point 2. Again, Ebersole is going to mark this wrong if you put this on your paper. 0.20, 2 places behind the decimal for money, right? So $547.20. Now let's stop and think about this. The first 1,000, she made $40. Does that seem worth it? Making that extra $40. He saved you. The first part, $40, doesn't even seem worth it. You sold $1,000 worth of stuff, and they paid you $40. The second part, the next 2,000, how much did they pay you? 120. A little better, but still, for selling $3,000 worth of their stuff, you think, man, I'm doing all this work and not really going up very quick. So now you got $160 total, right? But once you get over that $3,000 mark, now does it seem worthwhile? Yeah, now all of a sudden you make an extra $547.20. That's a whole bunch of extra money. So here, they're saying, all right, you sell just 1,000. We're talking about like Elijah again, and Elijah just sells just $1,000 worth of stuff.
They do that so you can shoot for raise.
Right, because they want you to sell more and more and more. You sell just 1,000, you're just at low, I'll just take my little low commission here. You're not gonna make very much. You sell another 2,000, all right, we'll pay you a little better. They're gonna give you $120 for that next 2,000. But then once you get over that $3,000 mark, now they're paying you real money. All right, what do we do with all these to find their commission? Add them all up. Somebody add all those up for us. $707.2. And then we make sure 2 places behind the decimal. So just in commission, how much did Irene make? $707.20. It said for the past month, right? Now, hopefully, we talked about this last time, hopefully, that's not all she's making. Hopefully, she's got a salary that's involved there too, that this stuff gets added on. But this is, again, this graduated commission, a lot of places like furniture stores and stuff like that, they do stuff like this so that you don't have everybody just sitting there doing this. You actually want to sell something. You want to make that extra money. Mike is paid weekly and earns 4% straight commission on sales of $500 or less, and 5% on sales over $5,000. Sorry, that was $5,000 or less. Didn't see the extra zero. 1 week, Mike's total pay was $362. What were his sales for the week? This is one of the harder problems, because they're telling you how much commission he made, and they want you to figure out how to go from there. Whenever you're doing these harder problems, the algebra problems, or the challenge problems in the thing, I had a couple of students last year that hated it. I always set up an equation like an algebra, right? So I always set up an equation like an algebra. A couple of the students just hated that I did that every time. They said, well, I can just figure it out in my head. If you can figure it out that way, great, go right ahead. I set up something. What do we not know in this problem? We don't know his sales, do we? So, in algebra, when you don't know something, you let it be what? That's what we're going to do here. We're going to say, okay, the amount of sales that he had was X. And then we're going to set up an equation. We know that when we're done, his total for the week should have been $362. Here's where we gotta figure this out, and this is a little rough. What are we going to do to X to, how are we going to do this? How can we set this up? What did we do on the last one? We took the 5% and we times it by what? Maybe it's not good to set up an equation. Maybe you guys would be better off just figure it out. Try to figure it out. He sells $5,000 worth of merchandise. What's he going to make? not 5%, sorry, 4%, right? So let's forget the equation. Maybe that's a bad way to do it. Let's just do this. 5,000 times what? What's his percent commission? Somebody help me out and do that. Anybody get something? Caitlin's scared to tell me. Say it again. 200. Anybody else get that? You were scared also? So $200. So if he sold $5,000, he'd make how much commission? Did he make 200?
No.
He made more, didn't he?
Yeah.
So did he sell more or less than 5,000? He sold more. Well, we got to figure out how much more he sold than 5,000. So we know he made 200. What are we going to do with this 200? So 362 minus 200. What's that leave us with? 162. Now, how are we going to do this? Sales over 5,000. He makes 5%. Because we don't know how much over 5,000 he was. So if his sales are X, let's change that. Let's make it sales over 5,000, since we decided not to set it up all as one equation. So it's going to be, you could do that. The algebra way to do it is X times, that's his sales, times what percentage? 0.05. And we know that this times this should give you how much? How much extra commission is he going to make? $162. Now what? How do you solve that? How do you solve for X there? If you're multiplying by something, how do you solve for X? Divide by that number, right? So what am I going to divide both sides by? 0.05. Listen closely. We're going to have to take a test here real soon, because I think that'll light a fire under a bunch of butts, won't it? We get a test and their grade falls to like a 30 or something. What's 162 divided by 0.05? What happens when you divide by something like 0.05? If you divide by anything that's smaller than one whole, what happens to the number? It gets bigger. Thank you. It gets bigger. Somebody divide this, and this one should get a lot bigger. Say it again. 3,240. Anybody else get that? 3,240. Now, here's why I don't like doing it this way. Is that your answer for this problem? No. That's how much he sold over what? 5,000. What are you going to do with that number? To figure out his total sales. Add 5,000 to it. Good. What do you come up with? 8,000. So how much total sales did Mike have for the week? $8,240. He sold $8,240 worth of stuff. Right, I'm not switching it back. This is your assignment. I might just say, yeah, heck with this. That's what I should do, shouldn't I, Lane? Should just say the heck with that part of it. Just give the assignment and tell you it's got to be done next time. on him. Lane shook his head, yeah, he doesn't even know what I'm talking about, he didn't have a clue. He started to read it, he got through like, if we, and then he stopped and said, yeah, just do that, Ebersole, because he didn't want to read the whole sentence. Get out your books, page 115. Write this down, we're going to do a bunch of this together. As we do it together. If we got about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 21 minutes. If we get through 10 problems, I'll cut the assignment way down. But if you sit here and nobody answers questions and we don't get through 10 problems, then that's your assignment. So get out your calculators. Lane, get out your phone so you can help. I don't care. Start bringing a calculator, every single one of you. Wes just proved my point earlier because he had his phone out, not using it as a calculator. Thinks Ebersole's so old he can't see nothing. It's too far away. Wait towards the end and I'll send you down. Wait towards the end and I'll send you down. What'd you say, Lane? He didn't say anything because he knew it. He was right, and I appreciate that. About half the other, that's why I didn't yell about it or nothing, because about half the other people in here, if I said that, I didn't have my phone out, I wasn't doing nothing on my phone. Don't lie about it.
I mean, it's right there, you can see it.
Find my book. There it is. And but see, Lane thinks that since I'm old, I can't see more than like 8 feet or so. Page 115, number 1. Sal makes 10% commission on the first $5,000 and 15% on sales over $5,000. What's his total commission on $15,000 worth of sales? Again, the way I do this, I set up a little chart. It doesn't have to be anything real special. What they tell us the first percentage is 10%, up to 5,000. First 5,000, and then it says over 5,000. And I just draw myself a little chart like this, and we'll put the answers here and here. And then what are we going to do with those two answers? Add them up. What's the first thing we do? Did he sell more than $5,000? Yes. 10% of 5,000. Do that on your calculator real quick. Remember, it's times, right? 5,000 times what? 0.10. 500. Everybody agree with that? How much did he sell? 15,000. So we already paid him for the first 5,000. We subtract that. How much we still got to pay him for? Another 10,000. And what are we going to multiply that by? 0.15. Somebody do that for us.
Pardon me, teacher's introduction. At the time, I'm going to use a freshman with the last name O through T, or O through Z. O through Z. Freshman, please come down and get your pictures taken. Thank you.
1,500. Anybody else get that? What do you do with those two? Add them together. What do you get? What's the answer here then? 2,000. I'm not waiting on people, so if you're not getting this down right now, and if you're not following along, number one, you're screwing it up for everybody else because we're not gonna get 10 of them done. Number two, I'm gonna let those people who are working throw stuff at you here in a few minutes. I'm gonna walk out in the hallway. Number two. So 5% on the first 2,000, 8% on anything over 2,000. %, first 2,000. 8%, is that what it said? Is it 8%? Over 2,000? How much did this person sell? 7,740. Well, they like that 40 number for some reason. How are we gonna figure out the first part? 2,000 times point what? 0.5. That's the last time I'm writing that down. Everybody knows you bump the decimal over 2 places every time, right? So we don't have to write this down. You punch it in your calculator. 100? Everybody agree with that? Over 2,000.
We're gonna take 2,000 away from 7,000.
So 5,740 times what? 0.08. Be careful when you say that. What's that come up to be? $459.20. Is that right? What do we do with those two? So how much commission did this person make? $559.20. $559.20. Too late. I'm going quick. I'll leave the next one up there a little longer, Nathan, because you've been answering questions. Number 3. Dabney is paid a weekly commission of 3.5% on sales of $7,500 or less and 5.5% on sales of $7,500 or more. Last week, Dabney's commission was $822.40. What was the total of her sales for the week? So number three is one of the harder problems.
3 and 4.
We might skip 4. So one of the harder problems. First thing, again, I would normally write out a long equation for it, but you guys didn't act like you liked that the other time, so we'll just think it through this time. What'd they say? How much did Dabney make on the whatever, the first whatever? But what was, how much did she make on? $5,000 was the number. So under $5,000, she made a certain percent. Is that right? No.
Wait, I'm so.
Dabney is paid a weekly commission of 3.5 on sales of 7,500 or less.
All right. So what's the percentage? 3.5%, right?
Oh, we didn't know that.
What do we change that to? 0.035. Make sure you don't forget that. She makes that on how much in sales?
7,500.
So we want to see 7,500 times what? What is it? Well, that doesn't sound right. 262.5. And we add a 0 there, right? So that's how much commission she would make on the first 7,500. Does it say that she made more than that?
Yeah.
So what do we know? Did she sell $7,500 worth of stuff? She sold more than that, didn't she? So we gotta somehow figure out how much more than 7,500 she sold.
Couldn't you just do negative?
Now what we gotta do is take this number and subtract it from what? How much total commission she made, how much total commission? And what? 40 cents? And we're gonna subtract off the 262.50. What's that give us? Now's when you should be writing also, Nate.
Five.
0.90. So we've already paid her this commission for that first 7,500, right? We still owe her this much commission, but we are trying to figure out how much extra she sold above that 7,500. So when we did this problem in the notes, we took that number, 559.90, and we said, what was her percentage for anything over 7,500? What is it? Anything over 7,500, what'd they say the percentage was? 5.5? What's that? 5.5, what's that as a decimal? 0.05. Please make sure that you're bumping it over 2 places every time and not messing up. Do we know how much sales she had over 75? So what do we let that be? How do we solve this equation if I could write it straight?
Oh, wait.
All we do is divide both sides by what? 0.055. Ignore all those stray marks going up through there. These cancel out. What's going to happen with this number here? It's going to get bigger. So divide it out and see what you get. 10,000? Anybody else get that? So does that mean that they had $10,180 in sales?
No, that's how many sales.
They had sales over what?
7,000.
7,000. So what do we do with that number? 7,500 actually, right?
Yeah.
Not subtract, what do we do? We add, right?
17,600.
$17,680. Hold on now, that doesn't make sense to me. So this person made $17,680?
No, that's how much they sold.
Oh, that's how much they sold. That's not how much they made, right, Simon? That's how much they sold. Confused me for a minute, Tyler. I'm looking like, what happened to Tyler? Looking under the desk, thought maybe he fell asleep and fell down there or something. So, he's not asleep right now.
He was.
I know, he's been dozing off the whole time, but he's been waking up just enough so I don't scream and scare the crap out of him. Every now and then, Matt's been pretty good up till now, so I might send this video to his house and tell his parents to watch about the 54-minute mark where we're talking about Matt sleeping in class, see if they... So this person didn't make $17,680.
That's how much she sold.
That's how much they sold. Does that make sense for this problem that they made? What was their total commission? $822, somewhere around there. If they sold $17,000 worth of stuff, does it make sense that they make $800 and some dollars maybe? Yeah, that seems sensible. Should we do number 4 and try it since it's one of the same kind of problems?
No, I think we should skip it.
Pardon me, teacher,
gonna be on the
Objection.
test and
At this
stuff,
time,
so.
This is the final call for pictures, the final call for pictures. If anyone hasn't got their picture taken at this time, please go down. That would be staff and students. Thank you.
Number 4, let's look at it, and I'll just look at it and see. Nate earns a weekly commission of 2.5% on $75,000 or less, 3% on sales of over $75,000. 1 week Nate's commission was $2,135. Can we do this one a little quicker? Let's hope. So his total commission was $2,135, right? How much did he make on the first? What was it? 75,000.
Yeah, 2.5%.
So what's 2.5% as a decimal?
0.0.
Let's do that real quick. Nate must be selling stuff that's expensive, right? High dollar cars and stuff. 1,000 what? 875. Did he sell more than
Yes.
$75,000? Yeah. How much more?
$260 more.
So we subtract that, and Wes is saying it's $260 more.
Yeah.
What do we got to do with that? What's anything over 75,000? What's the commission rate? So 0.03, just 3. And we're going to times that by X, and it should give us what? 260. What are you going to do to solve that? What's that going to give us?
8,666.6 repeating.
So we'll say that. Is that our answer?
No.
We add that to what? 75,000. Add those two. That's going to be your answer. I'm not even going to write it down. That's going to be your answer. So he sold what? About $83,000 worth of stuff? Is that about right? What's it come out to be? Somebody say the answer so everybody gets it.
$83,666.67.
$83,666.67. So he made a lot of money that week, right? Is that how much he made?
That's how much you sold.
This is how much he had in sales. Sort of backwards of the other stuff.
That could be moving.
All right, on this, what I'll do. I know we didn't get 10 done, we only got 4 done. Sort of bothers me. But,
Can you go back?
yeah, hold on a second, I'll go back to the. On the assignment, we got 4 done. You do any 10 other problems. So that means you should have a total of how many? 14. Any 10 other problems. Gotta know how to do these commission ones, so don't just skip to the, that's the one you wanted me to go to, Nathan?
I think she just wants to talk to you about college stuff. I don't talk about what you're saying. Oh, is it?
I like it. I like it as much as I like you. Except myself. Oh, yeah. I don't even put Nathan in that conversation because he's my favorite. I love him to deal with. I've sent letters to his family and stuff trying to adopt him and get him to let him come live with me. Huh?
Yeah, by Mr. Ebersole.
You be a man.
Teacher was